So you have a business, but you're still scared. Asking for the sale. Well, I'm here to tell you, girlfriend, if you can't ask for the sale, you don't have a business. On this episode of La Dolce Vita, the formula for fabulous living, my guest shares her philosophy on asking for the sale, how to feel confident during the sales process. And I find this can be so valuable for you because you're here to do extraordinary things and help people with your product or service. And you can't do it if you don't master the sales conversation. And actually, that is about mastering yourself. So stay tuned.
Frankie Lee, dimmi, qual è senso della vita?
The meaning of life is to live la dolce vita, which is the formula for fabulous living.
Hi, my name is Heather Picken, and welcome to the La Dolce Vita Show, the formula for fabulous living. I'm the catalyst in helping you to be more confident, create your dream business, and attract elite clients and live a fabulous life. Here's Heather helping you to upgrade your life to
Fabulous. Upgrade your life to fabulous. Right, Frankie? You're fabulous.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of La Dolce Vita, the formula for fabulous living. I know I like to sound like I'm a little bit Italian. The fun fact here is I'm mostly Irish, but I used to live in Italy, and I love teaching entrepreneurs how to live the formula for fabulous living because there's a formula for success in anything that you do in your business, in your relationships. And I love interviewing people all around the world that have the formula. They have the secret sauce. And I love this concept today, or this what we're going to be talking about today, about the formula for asking for the sale. And let's face it, if you don't know how to sell in your business, you don't have a business. Mastering the sales process is so critical. And I have my guest today, Nikki Rausch. Hopefully I pronounced her name right. And before we begin, I want to share with everyone, here's how you could spread the message in my mission, because it's really about empowering millions of women all over the world to own their power, not just entrepreneurs, but women in general, because we've got a wide variety of topics here. So here's how you can do it. Go to iTunes and rate, review, and subscribe. So what that does, it shows people all over the iTunes world that the show is out there, and just give your kind of insights on how you think this show has helped you or other shows. And the second thing is, when you go over to my site, heatherpicken.com, and you click on blog, you want to click on that video, which takes you to YouTube, and click on the bell. I call it Pavlov's bell. And what that does, it alerts you to all the upcoming episodes, because it's really fun to kind of watch us here on video. Nikki has a beautiful background. I've got the world map, and I just like having fun. So Nikki, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
And before we get into today's topic, because I think this is so important, can you share a little bit about what you do and how you help your clients?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm a sales coach. I have 23 years of sales experience, and really entrepreneurs and small businesses, they hire me to teach them how to sell so that they build strong relationships and that they're able to close more deals, and do it all without being salesy.
I love that. Yeah, because who doesn't want to feel salesy, feel like, I remember years ago when I was first, getting into my business, learning the sales concept. And I remember, I had one person say, "Oh, you're being salesy." And I didn't know. Like, I thought I was just doing my job and feeling good. And, I like the fact that you say that there's a way that you could help people to sell without being salesy. And I find, when I work with clients too, one of the biggest things when they come to me, they're afraid to ask for the sale. So before we get into that, because I love diving into this conversation, let's talk about some of the biggest mistakes that you find people are making right now when it comes to either asking for the sale or just the sales process in general.
Okay, so I love this question. So some of the biggest mistakes, one is that people actually don't get the words out of their mouth. Believe it or not, they think that they've done all that they need to do, but they miss this really important step, which is what I call the invitation. It's inviting people to the next step with you. Doesn't always mean the next step is, we met and here's my money, but it does mean scheduling whatever this next step in the process is. So you have to get the words out of your mouth. And I find that a lot of people make the assumption, oh, if they want to work with me, they'll let me know. And that's not true. So that's probably the number one mistake, is not actually asking, not issuing that invitation.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I find like a lot of people that I work with that come from corporate background that maybe, oh yeah, I've done sales. I have, millions in sales. But when it comes to their business, their own business, they really have a hard time asking for the sale because it's their stuff. They feel like, oh, what will people think about me? Right. Have you found that to be true?
Totally. 100%.
Yeah. And so let's talk about, going through that process, asking for the sale, because a lot of it has to deal with confidence, so I know for myself when I'm working with my clients, if you're not feeling confident in what you're offering, let's just say it's a very high ticket item, then people are not going to pay, your prices and what you're worth. So let's talk about this confidence piece and how important it is to really getting to the place of asking for the sale.
So confidence obviously is key. And yet for some people, you still have to build your business whether you have confidence or not, because it's not going to build itself, right? So one of the things that I teach is a lot around mindset of how do you set yourself up for success before you pick up the phone or before you walk into that meeting, or just being ready, right? So some mindset stuff, because it's easy to get caught up in what are they going to think of me, or are they going to think I'm being pushy or aggressive? When you're in that mindset, you're not in the right headspace to even start inviting people. And so kind of the first step is to get yourself like mentally prepared, but also to be thinking about, it's not about you. It's always about the other person. It's always about the prospect. It's always about the client. And so when you come from that place of, I've got to do my due diligence here, I've got to do the steps, because it really is my job to earn this person's business. And if I don't invite them and walk them through the process, a lot of times people leave feeling unsatisfied with you in some way. People wonder, actually, I get calls and emails every single week of people saying, I gave so-and-so a buying signal and they never asked me for my business. They hate me. And I'm like, they don't actually hate you. They just missed the signals. They didn't do their due diligence. They didn't ask. They didn't issue the invitation. So mindset, I think, is probably crucial. And I think that's maybe something you work with your clients on too, is that mindset before you walk in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that you talk about the mindset and you help your clients to do that, because if you're not confident and really understanding what your worth is and creating that transformation. And I like the fact that you said it's not about you, because if you take you out of the equation and really focus on serving people, and then you could get to that point of asking for the sale. Like if you look at Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey and even Virgin Airlines, what is that guy? Escapes me. Richard Branson, is that they, in order for them to build their wealth, they had two things. They had a value on a vast number of people and really serving them, and also a value on themselves, like having enough self-worth. And those two, when you think about the sales process, they're so important. So when let's just say someone is scared, they have a phone call planned with a prospective client. So what are some of the stuff that you can help people with, as far as like maybe one little tip before they get on the call, instead of like calming down their nerves?
Well, in calming down their nerves, I actually have a ritual, and it's something that I learned years ago when I studied neurolinguistic programming. And the story actually comes from when JFK was elected president, so it's a while back. But it was this idea that, the story goes that he had this conversation with his press secretary that, here I am, the president of the free world, probably the most powerful man in the world at that time. And he was fairly nervous about getting in front of the press because, oh my gosh, he might get asked questions that he doesn't know the answers to. And I think most of us are a little timid because what if our client asks us a question and we don't know the answer? What are we going to do? And so his press secretary had a kind of a formula for him. So this is back to you and your formula for success. And the formula is what's known as the NLP mandala. And there were 4 statements that the press secretary gave to JFK to say to himself before he went in front of the press. And so I teach this to my clients, and I do this. I did it before I got on the call with you today. I do it before I pick up the phone. I do it all the time. So the first statement is, I'm glad I'm here. Seems really simple, right? But there is something about not just saying it, but actually allowing yourself to feel those feelings. What does it feel like to be really glad to show up in a room or show up on a call? And then the second statement is, I'm glad you're here. Think about who you're going to meet. And when you show up from this place of like, gosh, Heather, I'm so glad you're here, people feel that from you. And then the third one, which is honestly my favorite, is I know what I know. And that's that place of standing in your power because, gosh, you might get asked questions you don't know the answers to, but you do know your product, you do know your service, you do show up with your expertise. And when you can stand in that or sit in that place of power, people feel that from you. So that's I think, that extra confidence boost. And then the last statement that he gave to JFK, the press secretary, was, I care about you. Now, sometimes when I teach this to people, they're like, I don't know if I do care about all my clients. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. If you don't like any of those 4 statements, change them out. But do something to mentally prepare yourself before you walk in the room. And for me, this only takes seconds, and it's enough of a mindset thing for me to go, okay, Nikki, be present. Be really present in this moment, because then when you get asked questions that you don't know the answers to, it's that kind of that saying of like water off a duck's back. It's not that big of a deal. And it's not a big deal to not know the answer to everything. As long as you know like your product, your service, and you show up from that place, like stand in that place of power. So I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're here. I know what I know, and I care about you.
I love that, Nikki. I think those are some really easy tips that people can ground themselves, because what you don't want to do is get on the phone and you're all nervous, you're freaking out, and the conversation goes sideways. So I think that's really helpful for people, and also, like I said, just keeping in mind when you're talking to someone, being present, listening, doing a lot of active listening, because I find a lot of times in sales conversations, when you're doing it wrong, people will go off on how amazing their product or service is without really finding out what the need is. So let's just say you go through your whole sales conversation and you do feel like there are some kind of buying signals. So what are some tips and strategies that you would recommend in asking for the sale? Because that is the biggest thing that people are having issues with.
So for me, it's like simple little language suggestions in those moments. So if you're getting those buying signals, then what you do is you might say, so you get to the end and you go, now based on everything we've talked about, there are these 3 options of ways we can work together. Which do you prefer? That's the invitation. Which do you prefer? Because then when they say, well, I think it's this, top tier, whatever you offer to them, and you go, great, let's go ahead and get the next session scheduled, or let's go ahead and get that, purchased for you, whatever that next step is. But let's go ahead and get that scheduled now. And then you get whatever the next step is scheduled on the calendar. And then when you get to that day and that time, guess what? They're waiting for your call, or they've already paid you the money. But you've got to get the words out of your mouth of like, all right, so based on everything we've talked about, which do you prefer? This is me issuing the please make a decision in a really kind way.
Yeah, I love that. It's very professional. You're being, hey, we have some options here. You can do A, B, and C. Which one would you like? And it's very subtle. It's not pushing someone into something that they don't want to do. And normally you can tell if you're on a call if they're even qualified. That's like another thing I think that's important to include in the whole kind of sales conversation. Knowing in the first couple minutes if they're a good match or not. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I teach and I talk a lot about one of the biggest things in sales is what I call clear the field. Like, get these people off your plate because they are energy sucks for you, especially if sales doesn't come natural, if it's something that you feel you have to kind of stretch yourself to do. Then, have these questions ready at the start of a conversation that you would kind of ask to kind of qualify somebody to see, are they the right fit or not? And if they aren't the right fit, it's okay because not everybody's a client. And we got to clear this stuff off of our plate, because if you have 50 people that you think could buy someday, that's overwhelming to think, am I going to call 50 people today? But if you have 3 people that are hot prospects, that's who you want to focus your attention on. The rest of them, like, maybe you schedule it down the road or you keep in touch with them in some way, but you get them off your plate. Clear the field.
I love that because your time is a commodity. It's very precious. You don't want to waste your time. I remember making that mistake very early on, staying on the phone too long when these people weren't really qualified. They were just kind of getting some free advice and they weren't ready to invest in their inspired idea. When I first started doing sales training myself, I remember I had 100 calls in a month. I was doing back to back. That's how I got good at knowing what the sales process is. But there's also those times, and I want people to get this, where not everything's going to be a home run. And I think it's important to experience the rejection and not feel like, oh, I did something wrong, they don't like me. So let's just say you go through the whole entire process. You think, in your perception that there are buying signals, and then they come up with the objection around the money. I don't have the money. You kind of go around that, but they truly don't have the money. Like, they're living on their last dime. They can barely pay their mortgage or their rent. So how would you tell someone how to handle the rejection part? Because that can literally paralyze people.
Yeah, so I honestly don't think of a no as a rejection. I just think of it as a not yet. That's kind of I actually tell myself when people say no to me, I always just say, like, I have a little voice in my head that goes, not yet. Because it feels better to me than like, ooh, like, a rejection to me feels like a kick in the stomach. So if somebody gets to this place, they really don't have the money, you've got to get them off your plate. And so what I might say in that moment to that person is, I've so enjoyed this time that we've had on the phone today, or this time we've had in person, and I would love to work with you when you're ready. You let me know, and I'll be happy to talk with you then.
I love that.
And
yeah,
then
and it's nice.
Keep the relationship intact. The person feels okay because maybe they're embarrassed that they don't have the money, or maybe they feel ashamed of it. So you set yourself up for success, because believe it or not, people who tell me they don't have the money often come back. They come back because I set them up of like, there's no shaming here. There's no bullying. There's no salesy approach. It's just, hey, if the time isn't right, when you're ready, you let me know, and I'd love to work with you when you are.
I love that. It's such a good way, because I don't believe pulling people in and, trying to push them when they're not ready, or if they sincerely don't have the money. And I remember it was years ago where I was getting some sales training, which I thought was good. And it was just it was not aligned with who I was. And what they were teaching was just pushing someone and manipulating people, in a way that I felt was just out of alignment. And I'm sure you've heard of, sales courses like that, or people that train other people like that. And it's just not a good feeling. And I think that's how a lot of people, particularly women, perceive sales to be.
And I agree. I think there is that training out there. I also think that that's a very old school approach. I mean, as consumers today, one, we're way more savvy, and two, we're skeptics, because there's all this information out there about people being taken advantage of, or this unethical kind of stuff. And so, that really is the old style, I think, of selling. Anything that feels manipulative, anything that feels pushy, aggressive, and salesy, people will like shut you down. Not only will they shut you down, but they used to say if somebody has a good experience, they might tell one person, and if they have a bad experience, they might tell 10. Well, now with social media, they tell thousands of people when they have a bad experience. I mean, it goes around social media like crazy. So it's more, to me, I always say, put the relationship first. I'd rather have a good, strong relationship with somebody than try to make them feel like they have to do business with me, or they're, the sky's going to fall.
Right.
Because they'll come back when they are ready, and it'll feel good to them of like, hey, here's somebody, whether it's Heather or Nikki or whoever, here's somebody who really resonates with me. Because I think we're looking for people who we feel that connection with. And so that's, I think, the most important part of the selling process.
I love that. Yeah, that's absolutely fabulous, because I definitely believe in that, and not pushing people, because if you have to drag them in, you have to drag them around. And in the past, I was guilty of that. I had to learn, because I was really coming from the need of, I need the money. And now I could choose whoever I want to work with, so I've had to go through the pain of learning all those lessons, because if you drag someone in, what happens is they might not perform well, and then you have to be after them. And it's just like a complete nightmare. So I think experience is also a great lesson, and it allows you to also appreciate the amazing clients that you have, and realize like, I don't have to work with everyone. I can work with the people that truly also appreciate, because you were talking about, it's a relationship. So imagine if, you were going on a date with someone and you call them right away, hey, how was the date? Oh, I really like you, and instead of just kind of leaning back and seeing if that person is really a match for you.
One of the other things that I talk about with clients all the time, and I think this goes against very much the old school way of selling, but I always say, I don't chase clients. And I purposely do not chase clients, because it's like a little toddler. If you have a toddler in front of you and you go, I'm going to chase you, what does the toddler do? The toddler like takes off and runs, right? Because it's fun and it's a game. And when you come from this place of like, I'm going to chase these clients, they run. And so when you stop chasing, just like when you stop chasing a toddler, what happens? They come back. They come back to you. So when you don't come from this, I understand desperation. I understand like, I've got to pay the bills. I get that. And yet at the same time, it's not a long-term strategy, because the other thing is we have got to be building ambassadors in the marketplace for us, right? So people have a great experience with you, Heather. You want those people out there talking about the success that they've had with you. And those people who you've had to drag around, they're not going to talk about the success they've had with you. They're going to go, I hired Heather and I didn't get anything out of it. Like, that's the last thing any of us want. And a lot of times they didn't get anything out of it because they didn't put anything into it. Right. So we want those people who are out there like shouting from the rooftops how awesome it is to work with you and how much value they got out of it. And that really only comes when those people are coming to you. You don't have to play hard to get, but you can't play desperate and eager either.
I love what you're saying, and if I would have known that years ago, I wouldn't have gone through it, but it's all part of the growing pains of building a business. So I find this valuable, it's such valuable information for people that are listening right now. You've got a business, you're growing it to the next level, is that you want to master your sales ability. You want to know how to ask for the sale and only work with clients that you truly love. And I really appreciate the value that you've brought to this conversation, then showing people there is a formula for being able to ask for the sale and feel confident and work with clients that you love. And before we go, where can people learn about you and your work?
Well, of course, you can visit my website, which is yoursalesmaven, MAVEN.com. Well, you can reach out to me on social media. You can find me, Nikki Roush, on Facebook. You can find my page on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I'm there, and I'd be happy to connect with your audience. Anybody who has some additional questions or would like some more information, please reach out.
Awesome. Well, Nikki, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me.
And I just want to close out the show before we begin is, like I said in the beginning, sales is really the secret to growing your business. If you don't know how to master sales, don't expect to go to the next level. They say it takes 10,000 hours to really master something. So how do you do it? Well, you get in there, you have a formula, you work it, go visit Nikki's website, hire a coach or mentor. Don't think you have to do this alone. And really, when you learn how to master that, you live what I call your La Dolce Vita life. That is the sweet life, and it is the formula for fabulous living. Until next time, this is Heather Picken. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. So if you found this show to be fabulous, please share with your fabulous friends, rate, review, and subscribe on YouTube and iTunes. And I'll make sure I take a beatbox lesson, right? Or give my little chihuahua a bone. That's me. Fabulous.